Right, good morning, Acting Chair Vollendroff, Member Garrett, staff, and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thank you, Dustin. Welcome to the Wednesday, October 11th meeting of the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board. As mentioned earlier, we are recording this meeting. For those of you in the room, please remember to silence your cell phones and take side conversations outside. We are starting this meeting today with our service recognition of Tom Dixon, who's worked for the LCB for 35 years. So joining me today is Director Chandra Wax, who's going to take over for it now.
Thank you. And thank you. All kinds of help this morning. Good thing. Thanks to Dustin for driving the slideshow that I sent to him just a few moments in advance. Good to see that you made it, Tom. Captain Dixon is here with us. Captain Dixon has 35 years of state service. With such a career, we could tell many stories. But when I was thinking of what I would say today, the words people use to describe Tom really stood out to me. As you can see, he was promoted to captain. He's worked for the Department of Revenue from 1998 to 1990, started with us in 1990, was promoted to captain in 2006, and now has 35 years of state service. Those words that people use to describe Tom were words like reliable. We can always count on him, personally and professionally, to help us celebrate the good times and to come alongside us in the bad times. He also embraces change. While sometimes it's hard to tell and he looks a little bit old school, he really does support change. And here you can see that he's even learning how to take selfies. He's a hard worker, leading from the front and from the trenches. You can see here also, he's still working on those selfies. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He has a sense of humor, makes people laugh, because work too can be fun. He doesn't pick favorites and gives everyone the benefit of the doubt. Although, as you can see on the next slide, pickle really is his favorite. When asked about Tom, people said some amazing things, some amazing words. Above all, he makes people feel valued. I'm going to tell you a few things people said about him, and Dustin, we can just leave this slide up for the interim. He'll throw out 20 ideas in hopes of having a good one. One word, speedo. I'm sure there's a good story there. He treats others with respect, always shares his opinion, makes others feel welcome and appreciated, gives kudos freely, has lots of stories of sailing, lots of talks about his favorite smells. Among those are sailboat cabin mold and the dump, interestingly enough. He's not afraid to try things and later admit they don't work. He does everything with energy and passion. He has outstanding commitment and leadership. He's a role model. He has unwavering dedication, wisdom, experience, and guidance. He's always there personally and professionally. He knows everything about this agency. He stops what he's doing to pay attention. And for the last slide, there is a reason the word tomfoolery exists, and it's this guy. So Captain Dixon's with us if you have anything you'd like to say, but thank you for your years of service, Tom.
Thank you so much, Chandra, for the nice tribute. It's been a great ride, and looking forward to pulling the plug next October 1st. And very much have enjoyed working here, and we've come a long way. Lots of changes, and you know, I was planning on staying with the board about 2 years and then moving on to a federal agency and seeing the rest of the country or the rest of the world. And here I am 33 years later, still at it. So looking forward to my last year here.
Thank you very much. And it looks like he's made his announcement that we'll be planning a retirement.
Hopefully it's not literally a pulling of the plug. Tom, I'd just like to add on behalf of the board, thank you for your many years of service. I've had the pleasure of meeting you, I believe, at the Mott Lake Terrace location is where you're at, and impressed with your leadership that you've demonstrated, and the kind words that your staff actually said of you while I was up there. So congratulations.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate that.
All right, moving right along. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to do rulemaking, and I'm going to turn it over to Cassidy West, our rules policy and rules manager. Cassidy, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Board Member Garrett. Good morning, Board Member Garrett, and thank you, Board Member Bollendroff. I'm going to go ahead and start with alcohol rulemaking today. And so we have stakeholder engagement for the alcohol delivery and mass 13 rule project coming up on October 16th and October 18th. Those are virtual. And then Daniel plans on bringing the 102 to the board on November 8th. For the trade area rules, we are preparing conceptual draft rules, and Daniel plans to have those out by the end of October. Public engagement sessions will be held in November, and in December, Daniel's tentatively planning on bringing the 102. We did receive a rule petition yesterday about beer endorsements. I don't have the details right off the bat. I can give you more. I'm sure Daniel will chat it to me in a second. But that's it for the alcohol stuff. Are there any questions about that?
Great. Board Member Garrett, any questions? No questions. Thank you, Cassidy.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll move on to cannabis. We have a collaborative rulemaking discussion for vendor and educational sampling. Today, it's also virtual. It's on 1 to 3, and then I do have the PowerPoint up for that discussion on the Laws and Rules webpage. Actually, all of the stakeholder and any public engagement, you can find all those announcements on the Laws and Rules webpage, and then it'll link you to the actual invitations on our current outreach page. And so go back to cannabis. We'll be bringing the 101 for the for medical cannabis endorsements petition that the board had accepted on October 27th. Also on October 27th, I'll be bringing the CR 101 for the social equity, and that's SB 5080. And then at the end of the month, we'll be holding stakeholder engagement for the THC bill. And so that's it for cannabis. Today, I will be presenting a rule petition response for action this morning, but would first like to review some of the changes that have been made to the petition response format, and that's reflected in the response I'll be presenting.
Great.
Okay. So to improve transparency and accountability in the way that agency responds to petitions, changes to the existing format have been made based on best practices for good governance that were developed using a variety of academic literature. The petition process described in RCW 3405-330 and Chapter 8205 of the WAC does not provide guidance for what should be included in petition responses. If petitions are approved, it does go through and provide some guidance on what's to be included if petitions are denied. And so with that, we developed some criteria for when deciding when to approve or deny a petition. The following factors will be considered to the extent practicable: LCB's statutory authority and obligations, alignment with the agency's policy goals and priorities, the immediacy of safety, environmental, or security concerns raised, availability of LCB resources and priority of the issues raised, level of public interest, whether the problems or issues are already under consideration by the LCB and other rulemaking issues, merits of the petition, LCB's relevant past decisions and current policies, social equity and DEIB impacts, and potential impacts related to preventing diversion and promoting public safety. Are there any questions about the new format before I begin on the petition response? Okay.
No questions. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Okay. So in the petition, Mr. Taylor from Andres Taylor from Sweetleaf Sowers requested that the agency initiate rulemaking to amend WAC 314-55-0834F, which provides the security and traceability requirements for cannabis licensees. More specifically, the petitioner requested that the rule be amended to allow groups of plants that are under the same strain and growth phase be grouped together under a single unique identifier and tracked. Under the current rule, clones may be grouped in lots, and once the plants reach 8 inches in height or width, each plant must be physically tagged with a unique identifier and tracked individually. After the plants are harvested, they're once again grouped into lots. Lots or batches. Mr. Taylor provided the following reasons for the proposed rule change. It would simplify the processes for plant inventory management to reduce the compliance burden. Excuse me, a cost reduction that would result from not having to tag and track plants individually. Ensuring cannabis is traceable from seed to sale is necessary to prevent diversion and promote public health and safety. And the proposed rule change would not substantially impact the current regulatory or seed to sale regulatory framework, especially since clones and harvest are tracked in batches or lots. So batch tracking is a method of inventory management that assigns a unique identifier to a group of items that share the same characteristics. Batch tracking allows inventory to be traced from origin by location and through its movement through the supply chain, maintaining a chain of custody for that inventory. There are different types of batch tracking systems, such as barcodes, RFID, QR codes, serial numbers, etc. All of it can capture and store the inventory information necessary. In the cannabis industry, tracking by batch means keeping a record of the quantity of plants and its yield. When plants are harvested, the flowers are combined into lots, at which point the individual plant can no longer be distinguished. It's important to consider whether there's a continued value by requiring licensees to track each plant individually rather than the quantity within a batch. The agency has statutory authority to make the rule change. The petitioner's request is aligned with the LCB's statutory obligation to consider economies of scale and the impact on licensees' ability to comply with the regulatory requirements and undercut illegal market prices. Licensees are responsible for all costs with the reporting and traceability requirements. And given this, it may be prudent to consider whether the current requirements impose an undue burden while not necessarily providing a greater benefit with regards to preventing diversion and promoting public health and safety. Approving the petition would initiate the collaborative rulemaking process in which feedback would be solicited from stakeholders and other interested parties about the rulemaking topic that's relevant for us to make those decisions and assess the compliance burden and any associated regulatory outcomes with the current rule requirements. The petitioner's request is aligned with the agency's current policy goals and priorities, and relevant past decisions and current policies. It's been a decade since adult use cannabis was first legalized in Washington state, and there have been significant advancements in the industry and technology. LCB has used a variety of traceability vendors and software since legal marijuana began. CCRS was designed to be an interim solution until a more permanent solution could be developed. Although the rules were written such that the inventory tracking software must have adequate seed-to-sale capabilities, CCRS does not track all aspects that are required to be tracked by licensees. Subsequently, Policy Statement 2110 was issued in December 2021 to describe the adjustments to the traceability system or traceability and reporting requirements that would be supported by CCRS. For example, although the rules require plants to be physically tagged with a unique identifier generated by the traceability system, CCRS does not generate these unique identifiers, so licensees must report the unique identifiers to the traceability system. Sorry, lots of talking. LCB is also currently developing a charter for a traceability project in which the goal is to clearly define the cannabis regulatory program and provide a vision for the future of cannabis regulation, reporting, and traceability in Washington state for the successful transition to a long-term reporting system that fully supports the reporting obligations and traceability needs. Accepting the rule petition would initiate the collaborative rulemaking process to gather relevant internal and external feedback necessary for informing the future of reporting and traceability. Additionally, there's a high level of public interest in addressing the traceability framework, so we would expect those conversations to be really robust. The proposed rule would not may not significantly impact public health or safety in a negative way. The concept of batch tracking is not inconsistent with the existing regulations, which already allow groups of plants to be in clones or after harvest grouped together and assigned a unique identifier. So this, so instead of assigning each individual plant a unique identifier once it reaches 8 inches in height or width and breaking the chain of custody, the original unique identifier assigned to the clone lot would remain throughout the harvest and processing until the lots are packaged for retail sale. Therefore, the base material used in the processing of the concentrate or infused product would be identified by the lot number originally assigned to the clones or lots as required by that WAC section. If the petition is accepted, to ensure the proposed rule change would advance public health and safety and prevent diversion, at least the following would be required: a robust seed-to-sale traceability system that would capture where the plant originated, clearly defined regulatory framework for a batch tracking inventory management system that's compatible with a seed-to-sale traceability system. The regulatory framework must identify a specific quantity of plants that would be within a single lot or batch, identify the characteristics for plants that make up that lot or batch, including but not limited to being planted and harvested at the same time, being of the same cultivar, etc. A requirement that licensees would need to physically tag lots or batches with that unique identifier generated by a traceability system, and then require reporting so that there's an adequate chain of custody from seed to sale. Washington's seed to sale regulatory framework for traceability is effectively the same as in other states with legal cannabis, including those that allow batch tracking, require individual plant tagging, or allow both. Colorado is considering a transition to batch tracking, and Oregon will transition to batch tracking system in 2024. Other states, including Maine, which allow both batch tracking and individual plant tagging, have not documented increased penalties on licensees associated with diversion or adverse public health outcomes that are a direct result of batch tracking inventory management system. So all of these states do utilize Metric as a traceability software. Batch tracking inventory management is a standard in many other industries, including food and drugs, both of which have significant impacts to public health and safety. Therefore, today I'm going to recommend that the board approve Mr. Taylor's petition for rulemaking, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Cassidy, for that terrific briefing. Traceability, of course, is extremely important, and I think it's important that we keep up with best practice. So it's nice to hear what other states are doing. Board Member Garrett, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, well, I'm looking for a motion to approve acceptance of this rule petition.
I move that we approve the acceptance of the rule petition.
Thank you.
And I second that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, that is approved. Thank you, Cassidy.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to general public comment. This is the public comment period of the meeting. Anyone will have up to 4 minutes to speak. Please limit your comments to LCB business and refrain from personal attacks or going off topic into things unrelated to what we do here. I will mention if I think the speaker has wandered off too far. Please be mindful and respectful of the speakers and everyone else who is present, whether virtually or in person. Do not enter or disrupt the meeting with other people talking during public comment. If we have any disruptions, I will pause public comment until the disruption stops. Please remember that this is being recorded and will be available online later today. If you were in the room with us today, please be aware that the microphones are sensitive and will pick up paper rustling and things like that. So if you're joining us online, please give us a second to connect you, and we will do so. Dustin will give us an alert when you get to 30 seconds, and I will ask you to conclude your comments once you reach the 4-minute mark. We will begin our public comment with those in the room today. And so first up, and I think our only in-person person is Gregory Foster. So Gregory, we'll have you go next.
Good morning, Member Volendroff, Member Garrett. It's good to see you all today. I'm here today to express my gratitude for Kathy Hoffman, her work, and to encourage agency leaders to ensure that her legacy of transformation is carried forward and built upon. So Ms. Hoffman spent 5 years at the agency, and she dramatically reformed the policy and rules program and had this added capstone of leading the formation of the research program. And so in all that work, she centered transparency and public engagement, and seemed to be driven by a pretty deep sense of responsibilities as a public servant. Mm-hmm. So, and now I don't want to belabor this point, but by way of contrast, Member Garrett will probably remember the kind of previous regime with Joanna Eide. It was a very different kind of approach and style, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So Ms. Hoffman, she recognized that value of engaging diverse voices much earlier in the process. She would share draft conceptual rules publicly during the Sierra 101 phase to help shape her thinking, and she would host pretty novel stakeholder engagement processes like listen and learn forums, deliberative dialogues, and work groups. And she also engaged the board earlier than her predecessors. Ms. Heidi was known for some pretty long expositions and pretty rambling discussions sometimes, which, actually was pretty interesting to hear. And I encourage the board members to engage in impromptu discussions more publicly and share what you've been learning and what you're thinking about. But it did sometimes lead to some surprises and some kind of awkward conversations sometimes. My understanding, Ms. Hoffman, she'd brief you privately each. And I think she respected really the dignity of the board and the wisdom of formal processes. So one example of that I'd like to highlight is the process that she developed around rulemaking petitions. And we heard that process today has been changed. So statute requires the board to respond within 60 days of receipt of any rulemaking petition. And Ms. Hoffman began briefing board members publicly 2 weeks prior to the board meeting at which you would be required to make a decision. And that respected that process and your power to make those decisions and allowed for feedback to be incorporated. It also allowed for the unexpected. Things come up, people get sick, and life happens, but that clock is ticking. So in the case of this batch tracking petition, I was interested because of my background. I've helped the agency with traceability in the past. It's complicated and it's controversial. I could have offered perspective if I had heard about it 2 weeks ago. I could have offered perspective if I heard about it yesterday, but the caucus had to be canceled yesterday on very short notice. I could have provided written feedback if there was anything published, but there wasn't in this case. And I could have been able to provide comments today.
Gregory, you have 30 seconds.
But the board positions the general public comments after you take action. And that's not the case with other agencies necessarily if there's action that's going to be taken that day. So long story short, this experience has me considering the implications of kind of the very different kind of 2-week notice that you got from Ms. Hoffman. And I just really want to encourage you to please support your staff and your leaders in appreciating, retaining, and building upon that transparency and public engagement which Ms. Hoffman brought to the agency, and which has made a big difference and helped a lot of people.
Thank you. Thank you, Gregory. All right, we will transition to online comments. And First up, we have Matt Trostling.
Good morning, Acting Chair Volendroff. Matt Schoenline registered to speak, but is not online with us today.
Okay, we'll move on to the second one and then circle back and see if he joins us later. Next up, we have Christopher King.
Great morning.
Morning.
It looks like Mr. Postman has left the room. That's unfortunate. I see you got a note passed to him because I wanted to have a discussion with him about an unqualified statement that he made, an affirmative statement that he made at the last meeting where he said that these people are not journalists. And I just would love to know, and I'll follow up another time when I get a chance. I'd love to know what people, to whom was he referring? Okay, because was it Luke Carlin? Was it Ann Continelli? Was it Peter Manning? Is it Mike Asai? Was it me? I mean, because I need to know who he views as not being a journalist. Now, you guys were there. Did you agree with this comment? I mean, it's a yes or no question. I mean, he made an affirmative statement. And I've watched you guys for years now selectively engage in Q&A. Okay, so it's time now, since an affirmative statement was made that impugned the integrity of my friends and myself, I think you need to answer that question. Did you agree with him that we're not journalists?
Christopher, we're here to just listen to you today.
Okay, well, you're going to keep listening, all right, because here's the thing. First of all, y'all know, and Mr. Postman knows about my journalistic background going back to the 80s when I managed the Cincinnati edition of the Ohio Call and Post, the only statewide Black newspaper ever, I think. You know, and then there was like also the Indianapolis Star, lots of freelance stuff. But let's bring it up to current, okay? And the things that I've done right before I got here. We all know, you probably can't read this, but what it is from the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts. Registration for news media under Supreme Judicial Court Rule 119, Part B. Registration for news media individuals not employed by a news organization. Who? Christopher King, JD. Kingcast, Chris King's First Amendment page, blah, 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 blah. 2012. So that's a little more recent. So I don't know. I think I'm a journalist. What's this here? About public speaking, the board lifting a ban on public comments. That's because of a lawsuit that I drafted. All right. And that was in New Hampshire. Front page news, working with city council to change the law about restrictive speaking. Okay. And then I got the commendation from the city and the alderman for that. So I think I'm a journalist, but let's bring it even more current than that. You might have seen 2 weeks ago, I sent you a video of that bud tender in that white-owned shop, as most of the shops are, of course, like 540 out of 545 of them, something like that. So you may have seen that I was in there reviewing some policies, and the bud tender dropped the $300 pre-roll on the floor in front of me, and I picked it up for her. But anyway, yeah. So the only reason that I'm in that shop interviewing a bud tender is because I'm what? A journalist. Yeah. This was the press pass I had at that time with my credentials at that time. Okay. So I'm not going to hear this stuff. You know, that's embarrassing for Dave Postman to say that. All right. It's ridiculous. And guess what? At that time, when I was working with I'm On Location, I was working with one Jeff Burnside, who's more a journalist than Mr. Postman or me, arguably. Jeff Burnside has Emmys. Okay. We worked together, produced a couple videos. All right. So,
Christopher, you have 30 seconds.
yeah. So I might suggest to you that the real journalist, we are the real journalist. All right. The journalists that are phony are the ones who work for the old newspaper that Dave Postman worked for. Okay. And journalists could have other occupations. You know, when he worked for Vulcan in communications capacity, he was working for the transition team for Mayor McGinn. Okay. We all know this. All right. But the real journalist, nobody's asking for any information about Director Lucala right now except me. All right.
Christopher, that's your time.
Let me just briefly conclude, as you let everybody else briefly conclude except me. All right. I'll finish up shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher.
So nobody's asking for that. That means they're not real journalists. It's ridiculous. Goodbye.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Sammy Saad.
I want to say hello to everyone and
Hey, Sammy.
to be here. Hey, how you doing? I wanted to be fair, and that's what I learned since I was a kid. And sometimes when I'm here, it's just for my job. I'm fighting for something I have since day one because I've been in medical cannabis since day one. I want to say thank you, the board. Maybe I couldn't understand you at the beginning. I couldn't understand you. I sit with you, Mr. David Postman. You show me with respect the point. Maybe I disagree because I want everybody as pioneer to have their license, and I still do from my heart. And it became a combination is both, the convicted felony and the pioneers. And the good thing is I fall in both category. It was not big a deal for me, but I fought for the whole community. The community said from the Rainier to Tequila to we are more than 65,000 Washingtonians. Thank you, the board, but we're looking for more from you guys. Thank you, Ms. Ellie Garrett. Sometimes misunderstanding would happen. I found out from a friend of mine, his name is, he owned a shop, and that shop, he got it from the lotto. He didn't get it because somebody gave it to him before Ellie Garrett being in a board. So the way I learned from my mom and my dad to say the truth, if it's on me or against me. I could not understand you, Mr. David Postman, but you're being very respectful. And if you respect someone, of course, they will give you respect. Misunderstanding happened, but like I said, I thank you, the board. Looking forward to see more people as pioneer getting their license. I'm not gonna lie, So to me, is a big happiness for the whole community because we're building a school and we just finished the blueprint, and I should help them. And it was the same celebration of me to hear the voice of I win the social equity license. Looking forward to work with the board. Much respect. I wish you guys the best. Sometimes people don't understand and they should not take it personal because this is all about licensing, about this. And I just wanted to be fair and to be faithful because the community asked me to say the truth and to go and to thanks. And the board, they've been listening to those 25,000 Washingtonian as Sudanese American and East African, and it make us more than that. And a lot of people celebrating because we're gonna build a school. Not, for us, it's the most important. Treat me with equity. And sometimes we can be lost, but this is not the fault of this board now because this is a new board. And I want to thank everyone. And I wanted to, hey, sometimes nobody perfect. Things happen in life, but we should respect and to reflect what we have and what we lost respectfully. And my mama asked me before I came because I lost my father since I was fighting for this, and it made me cry when I win. But at the same time, the truth is the truth. Nobody perfect. But I wanted to say, hey, Mr. Dobis Postman, not because just I get my license, I have to be fair. You never disrespected me. And as well as the whole board members. Sometimes people, if you see somebody mad and you don't know
Sammy,
and
you
you
have
didn't
30
listen to the
seconds.
whole thing, my 30-second is looking forward to see the board work with those pioneers. They didn't get the license, like what his name, Kevin Shelton, and that's very important for the community. And the community, my community, say that is your friends. They get the license, so we look forward to see more license for those people, more equity for them. But as far as the community, they say hi to you guys and no disrespect. We've been fighting in the past. It's all about the license and
Sammy, that's your
and
time. Thank
nothing
you.
else. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sammy.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
Next, we have David Busby.
You guys hear me okay?
Yep. Yeah, we can hear you, David.
Cool, thank you for having me. The first thing I would like to talk about is the petition for the rule change on plants and multiple plants under one tag. I'm pretty excited that the board has approved that. Loads of the other states have that kind of stuff going on. They're allowing for some batch processing on these materials. It saves a considerable amount of time for the producer side, the farmer in the equation. And I think that's actually a pretty big deal, and I'm excited about that. a thing about that is that WAC 314-55010 says that an immature plant is something that's below 12 inches. And then in 314-55083, they also talk about the trees being over 8 inches in height before they're considered a mature plant. And it seems like those two sections of the WAC are in conflict with each other. I'm not a lawyer, but that might be something that can get cleaned up during this rulemaking process. Since now the height of the plant won't be any kind of differentiating factor. A second thing to note is the CCRS upload for plant information may need to be modified so that you can include the quantity of trees that are represented underneath some specific identifier. And then the third thing I would like to add is that the CCRS, I got an announcement, I think it was from Brian a couple days ago, that CCRS is going to do confirmation emails on all the stuff that we upload. And I'm very excited about that too. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, David. All right, can we circle back? Has Matt joined us at all, Dustin?
Not that I've seen, no.
All right, thank you. We have one more person to provide public comment in the room now. So Mike Asai, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Board Member Valandroff and Board Member Garrett and the audience. My name is Mike Asai with Black Excellence in Cannabis. I'm the VP. I am also the owner of Emerald City Collective, first downtown Seattle dispensary unjustly shut down. I'm just wanted to briefly make a statement. Back in 1851, it was considered a mental illness for my ancestors to want to be free. It was phrased, drapetomania was a supposed mental illness that in 1851, American physician Samuel L. Cartwright hypothesized as a cause of enslaved Africans fleeing captivity. The reason I'm saying that is because, you know, this fight for inclusion has been going on for a long time, and it's been very warranted. As I've said before, you know, Peter Manning was the one that started this fight, got connected with Paulo Sardinas, Ali Garrett got on board, and in essence, Governor Inslee in the state of Washington. But, you know, we're hearing rhetoric as if when we speak that we're complaining. And it's the old notion of like the victim is not the victim anymore. And I just want to just say that, you know, we don't come up here just to complain. We come up here to hold the board accountable. Peter Manning empowered me in these past several years. He's my family. We've known each other for many, many years, but we weren't connected when we all had to close down. I lost faith in the state of Washington. I lost faith in the LCB. I had no faith in the LCB at all. I lost faith in politicians and legislators. And, you know, when I come up here and speak, this is from years. This is from years of pain for me and others. We drive down here from King County. It's not easy. It's not easy to talk in front of a lot of white folk. And I don't say that with malicious. My son is half white and Native American. I have aunties and uncles that are white. I have Asian in my family. My family, I have lesbian, gay, whatever you want to call it. It's all in my family. But I just want to say, you know, that when we speak here, we're not complaining. What we're doing is bringing to light that maybe things have not been brought to light. And sometimes it takes one or two people to bring that to light for the entire community, because the community is really intimidated of the LCB. The community is intimidated of the Capitol. They just are. And this is because of years of oppression of African Americans, okay? So with that being said, I also want to transition to right now, there's an issue with the IT. People need to be able to check their addresses that are looking for locations. And right now, they're not able to. And I don't know if that was brought to the board's attention. I know within under the director or within the office. I know there's been some talk about that, but I'm not sure if the board knows about that. So, you know, people don't need to have to always email this cannabis specialist and say, hey, can you check this address? It needs to be to where, hey, it's supposed to be, they can go online, they have an address, they can check it. They might want to check it at midnight. They might want to check it at 10
Mike, you
o'clock.
have 30 seconds.
Thank you. And so anyway, I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. And look, we at Blackness in Cannabis, myself, we see the change here. We are happy with the changes. We want to see more changes, but we recognize and see the changes that has been going on here, and we're happy about that. We would not have supported 5080. 5080 came out of what the task force initially was talking about before everything had got manipulated. And so we're excited to see, you know, what's going to transpire in the future. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. All right, can we check one more time, Dustin, to see if Matt has joined us?
Matt did join. Give me 1 second to activate their controls.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, you should be good to go.
Matt, can you hear us? Here he is.
Yeah. Can you hear?
Welcome.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Welcome.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, sorry, we had a mix up. I was logged in under my name versus Matt Shainline. My name's Trandu. Matt Shainline's right next to me. I'm one of the co-owners of Sean Kemp's Cannabis, and so is Matt Shainline. We just wanted to come here and talk about how to address maybe change the penalties for selling to minors. We recently had an AVN or a administrative violations for selling to a minor, and it was really beyond our control because we have policies and procedures in place for everything that we do. The employees are required to sign policies and
I
basically.
need to interrupt you for just a second to just acknowledge that we can't talk about specific cases. So happy to
Okay.
hear general comments, but we just need to keep it very general and not talk about specific cases.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I guess what I'm asking for is that first violation for selling to a minor be an educational infraction rather than an actual monetary penalty, and having it hang over the head of the business for 2 years, which creates undue stress. So that's what I'm asking for, because without speaking specifically to the case, in our situation, anytime that we onboard a new employee, they're required to spend 1 to 2 days of training and shadowing. They sign documents stating what they're supposed to be doing. They're required to check IDs, required to scan IDs. Before they even start the transaction, they're required to enter the date of birth into the point of sale systems to even start the transaction. And in this situation, the employee did none of that. And because the employee failed to follow all the procedures that we had put into place.
Again, I just want to remind you, we can't talk about specific cases, so just continue to keep it broad if you can. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep it vague, but that's the motion that I'm asking for, is for the board to consider first infraction for a sale to a minor be something that's educational, and that the business takes care of it as a human resource issue, rather than it be an actual penalty that hangs over the head of the business for 2 years, which creates a lot of undue stress. And then, now we're required to spend additional money to make sure that this is not happening. And it's, we're actually, even though we have two retail stores, we're still considered a very small business, and we're operating in the red still, and it creates a lot of stress around the business when something like this happens, and the first infraction becomes something that sticks with the business for 2 years. That's all I have to ask, or all I have to mention, just so we can get the process of talking about it going.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, any other comment? Anybody else, Dustin?
Nobody else registered, no.
All right, well, I think that covers everything on our agenda today. So with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Ollie, anything else for you today? Okay,
No,
great.
no, thank you.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Probably look like she in your home state.
Earlier.
It's like the boulders, yeah, it's like she's. Yeah.